Imagine for a moment that you are looking at a giant, beautiful puzzle. This puzzle is supposed to show a perfect picture of a royal family. It has a prince, a princess, and their new baby. Everything looks shiny and happy. The whole world is watching and everyone is cheering. But as you look closer at this puzzle, you start to see that some pieces do not fit. Some pieces are upside down. Some pieces are the wrong shape. And some big, important pieces are missing completely. Usually when a royal baby is born, it is like a fairy tale. There are big announcements, ringing bells, and doctors who sign special papers. It is a moment of history. But with Meghan and her children, the story is very different. It feels less like a fairy tale and more like a mystery novel. There are secrets, whispers, and stories that change. For a long time, people have asked questions. They have noticed strange things. But now, someone from inside the family is speaking up. This isn't just a guess from a stranger. This is a story coming from the people who know Meghan best. They say that the picture we saw on television might not be real. They say the puzzle is broken. And today, we are going to look at every single broken piece to find out what is really going on behind the castle walls. The story begins with Samantha Markle. She is Meghan's older sister. For a long time, people thought Samantha was just jealous or wanted attention. But recently, Samantha said something that shocked everyone. She talked about the most secret part of Meghan's life. She talked about the time when Meghan was pregnant with her son, Archie. Or rather, she asked a very big question. Was Meghan ever really pregnant at all? Samantha did not just say this to be mean. She did not just use vague words. She had a very specific story. She said this story came straight from their father, Thomas Markle. According to Samantha, their father told her something about Meghan's medical history. He told her that Meghan had gone to a doctor to get her frozen eggs. Frozen eggs are what women save if they want to have a baby later in life. But here is the strange part. Samantha claims that Meghan picked up these eggs exactly 9 months before Archie was born. She says it wasn't 2 years before. It wasn't 5 years before. It was exactly 9 months. Why does that number matter so much? Think about how long it takes to grow a baby. It takes 9 months. Samantha believes this is a huge clue. She calls it a red flag, which means a warning sign. She thinks that if you pick up eggs exactly 9 months before a baby is born, it is because you are giving them to someone else. She believes Meghan used a surrogate. A surrogate is a different lady who carries the baby in her tummy for the mother. Samantha was very clear. She said she used a surrogate. She couldn't have children. We do not know for sure if this is true, but just saying it changes everything. If Meghan used a surrogate, then the whole story we were told is wrong. The stories about the hospital, the doctors, and the birth would all be made up. It would mean the world was told a lie about how Archie came into the world. The timeline of the eggs is just the first strange thing. There's a lot more. The royal family is very famous for having rules. They have rules for how to dress, how to eat, and how to wave. But the most strict rules are for when a new baby is born. They do not have these rules just to be fancy. They have them because the new baby might become the king or queen one day. The baby is part of history. Because of this, the birth has to be proven. It has to be written down and watched by important people. Usually when a royal baby is born, a few things always happen. First, the queen is told right away when the labor starts. Second, the news reporters are told what is happening. Third, there are special doctors and witnesses who stand there and watch everything to make sure it is real. Finally, a birth certificate is signed immediately. This is how it has worked for many, many years. But when Archie was born, almost none of these rules were followed. It was like the rule book was thrown out the window. People say that the queen was not told the right information. The news reporters were very confused because they were told different things at different times. They didn't know where the birth was happening or when it happened. The most important people, the witnesses, were not there. And then there was the birth certificate. A birth certificate is a very important paper, but for Archie this paper was changed. 11 days after he was born, the paper was altered. They took off Meghan's regular name and replaced it with her fancy royal title. Why would they do that? It wasn't just a small mistake. The royal system is designed so that mistakes don't happen. When rules are broken like this, people start to wonder why. Was the protocol broken because something happened that they didn't want anyone to know? Was the paperwork messy because the birth didn't happen the normal way? As people started asking more questions, they looked closely at the hospital. Meghan said she gave birth at a place called Portland Hospital. This is a very famous place in London. It is known for being very fancy. It is like a hotel. It has great food and private rooms. Rich and famous people go there. But there is one very big problem with Portland Hospital. It is a problem that does not fit with Meghan's story at all. Portland Hospital does not have an emergency room. An emergency room is where you go if something goes wrong very fast. If a mom is having a baby and suddenly gets very sick, or if the baby stops breathing, they need emergency doctors instantly. Portland Hospital does not have that. If there is a big problem, they have to put the patient in an ambulance and drive them to a different hospital. This is important because of something Meghan said. Meghan once told people why she didn't take a photo on the hospital steps. Usually, royal moms stand on the steps and show the baby to the world. Meghan said she didn't do this because the emergency department at the hospital made it unsafe or too busy. But remember, Portland Hospital does not have an emergency department. She was talking about a part of the building that does not exist. So now the audience is left scratching their heads. Why would she use an excuse that doesn't make sense? Did she forget what her own hospital looked like? Or is it possible she wasn't really at that hospital? It is a simple detail, but it is very unsettling. It is like another crack in a smooth wall. When you see too many cracks, you start to worry that the whole wall might fall down. While the official story was getting confusing, Meghan's own family kept talking. These were not strangers on the internet. These were the people she grew up with. Samantha kept saying that the timeline of the frozen eggs proved everything. She felt that the only reason to get eggs 9 months early is to give them to a surrogate. But Samantha wasn't alone. Meghan has a half-brother named Thomas Markle Jr. He went even further than Samantha. There are reports that he made a video where he made fun of Meghan's pregnancy. In the video, he wore a fake belly. He joked that he bought the bump online. This was a bit mean and very dramatic, but his message was clear. He was telling the world that he did not believe his sister was really pregnant. Think about that for a second. These are her siblings. They grew up in the same house. They heard the family talks. They saw how things happened over the years, and they both believe that the official story is false. They did not speak quietly. They spoke loudly and confidently. They sounded like they knew a secret. When they speak like this, it makes people wonder about their father, Thomas Markle. He is at the center of all this. What does he really know? If Samantha is telling the truth and Thomas really did tell her about the frozen eggs, then this isn't just jealousy. It is inside information. It suggests that the family knows the truth, and they are trying to tell the world in their own way. Royal births are serious business. Because the baby might be a king or queen, there is a strict history of verification. Verification means proving something is true. This isn't done for gossip. It is done to keep the royal line pure and correct. This leads us to the strangest part of the mystery. If Meghan really gave birth at Portland Hospital, there should be a lot of people who saw it. A hospital is a busy place. There should be nurses checking her heartbeat. There should be doctors helping the baby come out. There should be people who give medicine to stop the pain. There should be security guards watching the doors and office workers typing up the forms. A royal birth is never a quiet event. It is a huge production with lots of people watching. But in Meghan's case, it is silent. Not a single person has ever come forward to say, "Yes, I was there." No nurse has spoken. No doctor has been confirmed. Even the doctor that people thought was there, a lady named Dr. Penelope Law, became a mystery later on. People aren't even sure if she was really in the room. This is not normal. It is very, very weird. Usually, the doctors who deliver a royal baby are proud. They become famous. Their names are written down in history books. But for Archie, there is just empty space. Why are there fewer witnesses for a royal baby than for a normal baby? There are only two answers. Either every single person at the hospital suddenly forgot what happened, or the event didn't happen at Portland Hospital the way we were told. When you look at it this way, it stops looking like a mistake. It starts looking like a plan. It looks like a deliberate effort to hide something very big about how Archie arrived in the world. As the story got wobbly, people started looking at the pictures and videos of Meghan when she was pregnant. Pregnancy is a natural thing. It follows a pattern. A baby bump grows a little bit every week. It gets rounder and harder. It moves in a certain way. But when people watched Meghan, they saw things that didn't look natural. People noticed that in some photos her belly looked very big. Then just a few hours later in a different photo, it looked much smaller. Sometimes it looked round and sometimes it looked flat. Sometimes it looked like it was sitting very low on her body, and other times it was high up. Real pregnancies don't change like that in one day. It was abrupt. It looked like the shape was being adjusted or moved. Then there were the videos. There is one video that went all over the internet. It showed Meghan bending down. When she squatted, her belly seemed to fold inward. It looked like it collapsed. Anyone who has been pregnant knows that a real baby bump is hard. It is filled with a baby and water. It does not fold like a pillow. Critics saw this and said, that suggests structure, not biology. They meant it looked like something she was wearing, not something she was growing. Meghan tried to stop these rumors. In a documentary later, she showed a video of herself dancing with Harry. It looked like a hospital room, but even that video made people ask questions. Her bump in the video looked very high and had a strange shape. Some people said they saw edges like it was a plastic attachment. Others said it was just medical machines. But the point is, nothing looked simple. The images didn't stop the questions, they created more of them. The audience wasn't just looking at odd details anymore. They were watching a story that didn't look like a real pregnancy. Before Archie was born, everyone was told that Meghan wanted a home birth. She wanted to have the baby at her house, Frogmore Cottage. She said she wanted privacy. She wanted to be in control. She didn't want the old royal traditions. That sounded fine. Lots of people like home births. But then everything changed in a flash. Suddenly, without any warning, the story changed. We were told that Archie was born at Portland Hospital, which is about 20 miles away. There was no announcement that there was an emergency. There was no explanation for why the plan changed. Sometimes a home birth has to move to a hospital if there is a medical problem. That happens. But if there was a medical problem, why go to Portland Hospital? Remember, Portland has no emergency room. It is the last place you should go if something is going wrong. It would be dangerous. Didn't make sense. Why would she leave her safe home, drive a long way to a hospital with no emergency gear, and then leave just 2 hours later? The report says she left the hospital almost immediately. This didn't feel like a normal change of plans. It felt like a rewrite. It felt like they swapped one story for another story. And once again, the question is, what actually happened during those mysterious hours? No one has ever fully explained it. Up until now, this might just sound like a lot of drama. You might be thinking, who cares? It's just a baby. But this chapter explains why it is so important. This isn't just about a celebrity having a secret. This is about the law of the kings and queens. The royal family has rules that are hundreds of years old. One of the most important rules is about the line of succession. This is the list of people who can become the next king or queen. According to the royal laws, an heir must be born of the body. That is the old way of saying the baby must come directly from the royal mother's body. The rule says the baby cannot come from a surrogate. Even if the egg belongs to the mother, if a surrogate carries the baby, that baby is not allowed to be in the line of succession. This means the baby cannot have a royal title. They cannot be called prince or princess. So if Meghan used a surrogate, then Archie and his sister Lilibet would not technically be allowed to have their titles. They would lose their place in line. The royal family would have to change the official records. This is why the stakes are so high. It's not just about feelings. It is about the constitution and the laws of the country. This explains the secrecy. If the official story is proven to be a lie, it would be a huge legal mess. It would break the structure of the royal family. That is a very powerful reason to hide the truth. It explains why there are no witnesses. It explains why the certificates were changed. It explains the silence. When you put all the pieces of the puzzle together, a picture starts to form. You have the story about the frozen eggs. You have the strange trip to a hospital with no emergency room. You have the broken royal rules and the missing witnesses. You have the belly that seems to change size and shape. And you have the very serious laws about who can be a prince. It does not look like a bunch of accidents anymore. It looks like a pattern. It looks like a secret that is being protected very carefully. It is a secret wrapped in smiles and edited photos. It is a secret guarded by silence. But there is a thing about the truth. Truth is like water. You can try to hold it back, but eventually it leaks through. It doesn't just disappear. It waits. It hides in the timelines that don't add up. It echoes in the voices of the family members who say, I know something. It sits underneath the papers that were changed 11 days too late. Eventually, the truth rises to the top. Maybe one day a doctor will speak. Maybe a document will be found. Or maybe the questions will just get too heavy to carry. But one thing is certain. The full story behind Archie and Lilibet's births will not stay hidden forever. This is not the end of the mystery. If anything, this is just the beginning. The world is still watching, and the puzzle is still waiting to be solved.